Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show, checking the pulse of Husker Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be doing a lot of off-season content. There's a lot of things to talk about. You got transfer portal quarterbacks. Obviously, we got to go after one of them. We got transfer portal in general. We got early National Signing Day, which has really just become National Signing Day here coming up soon in November. What's going on with Tony White? Matt Rhule is going to do a press conference at some point this week. I'd like to interview some folks and get back to doing that even more frequently. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a ton of off-season content here on the Carriker Chronicles, not just football, but volleyball and all Husker sports. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you're interested in what I have to say, and if you don't, no hard feelings. All right, so today's show, I'm just going to be honest with you. My wife's like, "You're doing another show? What are you going to talk about?" And I was like, "Do you really want to know?" She goes, "Well, yeah, I got to edit the video." I was like, all right. The most commonly asked question I've received since last Friday, since the Iowa game, sorry for bringing it up, is, "Adam, are we cursed?" Now, most of these are via text or something like that, so I can't hear the tone, that little voice in your head where you know if someone's joking or it's tongue-in-cheek or they're serious. I don't know. I think that's kind of a joke, but I think there's a lot of seriousness to it too. So today's show is about, is Nebraska football accursed? And I'm gonna answer that question right away, but stay tuned. The answer to the question is no, we're not cursed. Okay? I think the question is really, what has happened? Why are we losing so many close games? And I'm not going to go through the stats again about how many close games we've lost and how many games we've lost to ranked teams, because it just makes me want to vomit, and I've talked about it a million times. No, Nebraska football is not cursed. What people are asking when they ask that is, why do we keep losing these games? Close games, tight games, games of the way it's almost unbelievable type fashion that we're losing. Why does it keep happening? How do we fix it? So that's what this show is really about. Now, real quick, if you think back to teams like SMU, who at one point in time had the death penalty. Now, okay, they've been invited to join a Power 5 conference, the ACC. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've got the Dallas TV market. I understand all that. Okay, football is a lot about TV markets, TV deals. I get that. But you're not going to get invited to the ACC if you're not halfway decent. In fact, they're going to play Tulane this weekend for the AAC, not to be confusing, championship. And if they win, they're probably going to go to a New Year's Six bowl game as the highest ranked group of 5 team. Probably. That's where their football program is at. If they're not cursed, we're not cursed. Penn State with the Jerry Sandusky thing. They've had top 10 finishes. They've won a Big Ten title. They've been in the conversation year after year for being one of the best football programs in the country since the Jerry Sandusky scandal. If they're not cursed, we're not cursed. So if you're like me and you think that the idea of Nebraska football being cursed is crazy, and we really just have things that we obviously need to fix, and that's really the problem, then smash that like button. Now, Adam, why? Why do we lose the way we do? Why does it keep happening? How do we fix it? I don't have all the answers. What I have is my experience and my opinion. Now, my first thought is, not every situation is the same. Not every team loses for the same reasons. Not every program loses for the same reasons. You think about Michigan and Ohio State right now. Okay, I have a Big Ten show that I do, so I talk about them all the time. And I guarantee Ohio State fans feel cursed right now when it comes to losing to Michigan. I know that sounds laughable to Nebraska fans. Trust me, Ohio State fans are angry right now. Okay, it's really not that complicated if you're Ohio State. It's the fact that Michigan is a more physical team every year. This is really the first year Michigan's almost been able to match them athlete for athlete. I would still say Ohio State has the edge just because of guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, their wide receivers. But it's because Michigan's the more physical team 3 years in a row. Now, this year, Michigan didn't just outright push Ohio State around in the second half and the fourth quarter like they did the past couple years. But even still, okay, Ohio State scores and gets within a field goal with 8:05 on the clock. Michigan gets the ball. Okay, and keep in mind, they scored on 6 of their last 7 possessions, the Wolverines did. Michigan gets the ball at 8:05. Ohio State doesn't get the ball back till 1:06. Michigan kept that ball for darn near 7 minutes. So that's Ohio State's dilemma with Michigan. Now, you look back through Nebraska's history. It took 7 years. Okay, Tom Osborne lost his first 6 games to Oklahoma, and then finally he beat them in that 7th try. Okay, Osborne has talked, okay, about how after they lost to Georgia Tech in the Citrus Bowl, Georgia Tech shared the national championship that year, Okay, 1990 with Colorado. But after they lost to Georgia Tech after the 1990 season, that Citrus Bowl, Osborne gathered his coaches and he's like, you might want to start looking for jobs. We might be let go. Okay, there was a point where Nebraska had lost 7 straight bowl games. And they couldn't seem to get over the hump of beating the Florida teams, whether it's Miami, whether it's Florida State, whatever the case may be. For Nebraska, it was about speed. Okay, they changed to an attacking style 4-3 defense, and it was about speed. And there were other things, other factors along those lines too. But every situation's a little bit different. Here's what I see as to why Nebraska has struggled in close games, and people feel cursed up to this point, and what we can do to try to remedy that going forward. There's really 3 things. The first thing is we've got to be more balanced on all 3 phases. When you watch a Michigan, when you watch a Georgia, when you watch a Bama, when you watch these teams that are really good year after year, when you think back to when Nebraska was rolling, okay, yeah, maybe the offense was better than the defense one year, or the defense was better than the offense, or something like that, but there wasn't a gaping hole. You think back to Pelini's early years. His defense was incredible. The offense struggled. Pelini's last couple of years, the offense was way ahead of the defense. Okay, you think to this year. Really good defense, mediocre special teams, bad offense. Okay, you think back to when Frost was here, the special teams struggles. We had the one game where we punted it to one side of the field and the whole entire team ran to the other side of the field, and Michigan State ran it in for basically the game-winning touchdown. Okay, this year, there's multiple games where we have 0 kickoff returns, not even tried to return the ball on a kickoff. Versus Iowa, we averaged 3 yards. 4 punt returns, 1 fumble, and we averaged 3 yards per return, and that wasn't the only game like that, I might add. My point is we've got to be more balanced across all 3 phases. You're going to have a phase that's stronger than the other phases, or maybe it's the strength of your team, but you can't have a glaring hole because that glaring hole will be exposed and it will cost you games in crunch time. We've got to be better and more balanced at all 3 phases. Okay, whether the offense is stronger, defense is stronger, you can't have a glaring hole on special teams or whatever the case may be. We've got to be more balanced across all 3 phases. Number 2, and I know people are sick and tired of hearing this, it's the C word. Not that C word, the other C word. It's culture. I know people are sick and tired of hearing it. Okay, but if consistently year after year, we have the 4th most talented roster in the Big Ten. We just do. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska. Yet we're nowhere near the 4th best team in the Big Ten, not even close. Well, how does a team that consistently has more talent than somebody else lose to other teams? Okay, we consistently have higher ranked recruiting classes than Minnesota and Iowa, and more often than not Wisconsin, yet we know how those games have gone. It comes down to, it really does, it comes down to culture. If you've got, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm not in those locker rooms. I know conversations that I've had with people, but conversations that I have with people doesn't mean I understand exactly what's going on in the entire locker room. But just as an example, if you've got a bunch of really talented individuals that don't play as a team, you're going to lose to a less talented team that plays as a team, as an example. If you've got a certain team that's bought in and working harder and working longer, and they're bought into what's going on versus another team that's not, that's a culture type thing. Okay, if you work harder, if you are more physical, if you practice more physical, if you lift heavier your weights, if you're doing more conditioning, and I'm not saying Nebraska hasn't done these things, but what I'm saying is the buy-in from the team, the culture, the attitude, what reverberates through the locker room, what is the standard that you're held to, what is acceptable, what is not. I've had teams where average was acceptable that I was on, and I had teams where if you thought average was okay, you were going to get ran out of the locker room. Okay, culture truly matters, and if you look back to some of the cultures that we've had in the past, Mike Riley, one of the nicest coaches I've ever met. It was a nice guy culture. It really was. He was a 500 coach coming in. He was exactly 19 while he was here. High character guy, got nothing but love for him. But he's a 500 coach, and we had a nice culture. That doesn't help you win football games. You think back to Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini had probably the best culture that we've had recently, okay, in the last decade or so, but he had an us versus the world mentality. That dude can coach football, okay? But there became opposition between him and, I'm not going to go down the list, but it became an us versus the world mentality. Now, you can have a great season off of us versus the world mentality, but you can't build a program. It's too antagonistic. It's too divisive. There's too much divisiveness in that. So you can't have a program and a culture based off of us versus the world. It just doesn't work. But he probably had the best culture we've had in a while. And I've talked to Roy and Prince and Kenny and guys like that, because the standard that Bo had was insane. What he expected from his players was not insane. It was why they were winning 9-10 games a year. But the us versus the world mentality probably contributed to why they couldn't get over the hump of beating the really good teams and some of the tough losses that we saw on primetime television during Bo's tenure. Again, he's a good coach. Played for the guy. I love him. You go to Scott Frost, okay? At some point, it's like people didn't want to pay attention to the amount of guys that were transferring from Nebraska. At one point, we didn't just have the most amount of transfers, okay? We had by far the most amount of transfers of any school in the Big Ten. And sometimes 2 + 2 just equals 4, no matter how much people want it to equal 5. There was evidence there, okay? And I will share some specific conversations that I had at this point, because every once in a while when somebody would transfer, I'd be like, hey, what's going on? You know, just why are you leaving, okay? And here's some of the things I was told. My coach walks by me in the hallway and he won't even say hi to me. I text my coach and he won't text me back. Just to give you a couple of different examples from different folks, okay? That's obviously going to create division. That's obviously going to create issues in the locker room. It's not a team-type feeling, okay? And when it comes down to nut crunching time, that's going to be a difference maker. All right. Frost did have this no fear of failure mantra, which is interesting because I actually think he had a little bit of fear of failure. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I'm not trying to bury the guy. I'm just doing my show here. Okay, but if I'm right, okay, and the coach felt that way, you don't think the players felt that way, and then you get to crunch time and you get to the big time part of a game and the difficult part and the game's on the line and you're playing Michigan or you're playing whoever, you don't think that's going to affect how the team plays, is the only thing that I'm saying. Okay, we need a true, actual culture here at the University of Nebraska. People who are bought in. It's a brotherhood. You're going to lay it all on the line. You're going to give it all you got. Each and every day, you're going to hold each other accountable. You're going to have a standard. You're going to have actual no fear of failure. And if you lose, you're going to learn from it, get better, not whine, not moan, not complain. You're going to get better from it, and you're going to get ready for the next week. Something along those lines. All right, number 3 is turnovers. This is probably the biggest one. This is probably the most jaw-dropping one to me. Now, I'm gonna read a tweet from Sam McEwen, okay? Northwestern finished 13th in rush offense and 14th in rush defense and made a bowl game. That's mind-blowing to me. Nebraska finished 2nd in rush offense and 3rd in rush defense, I think he's talking about. I think I'm reading that right. And they didn't make a bowl game. The Huskers had 22 more turnovers than the Wildcats. You can win the line of scrimmage and lose the larger battle because of the giveaways. Turnovers. Now, I had these stats about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I have not updated them just because they're so disgusting. They really are. As of 3 or 4 weeks ago, these were accurate. I don't want to update them just because they're so nauseating for me. But as of 3 or 4 weeks ago, since 2004, Nebraska had a turnover margin of minus 111. The next closest Power 5 team was minus 61. That means we're 50 worse in the turnover margin category than the second worst Power 5 team in the country. Nebraska has the fewest turnovers gained, 362 of anyone, tied with Maryland, and Nebraska has recovered the fewest fumbles, 126, 25 behind the next worst school, which is Iowa. Again, this is as of a few weeks ago. No, I'm not going to update that. I just want to move on from it. That is probably the biggest reason why we're losing. If you're giving away possessions and you're giving teams short fields and you're giving team points, you're going to lose to people who aren't as talented as you. It's that simple. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, this show, as you know, is sponsored by DPS Concrete Construction. If you are a general contractor, building owner, or property manager looking for concrete repair or work done in the Omaha metro area, such as street paving, building floors, and parking lots, check out dpsconstruction.net. Now, here are my question for you fine folks at home. First, what do you think is the biggest key to getting things turned around and lifting the quote-unquote curse off of Husker football? Do you believe we're cursed? I don't. What's the biggest key to lifting the quote-unquote curse off Husker football? Number 2 is Matt Rhule the guy that can get things turned around and going in the right direction. And number 3, okay, and before I read question number 3, this is a tweet from Connor Happer. All right, Matt Rhule is now 1-14 in one-score games in his first years in college. All right, 2013 at Temple, 2017 at Baylor, 2023 in Nebraska. Outside of year ones, he's 12-10 in one-score games. So here's my third question. Matt Rhule's teams typically make a noticeable jump and improvement from year 1 to 2 and year 2 to year 3 as well. Will we start to see things turn around next year in year 2 under Matt Rhule? Let me know in the comments below. One thing that has to be a good sign when it comes from the year 1 to year 2 jump and the potential improvement in culture that Matt Rhule has maybe already made is the fact that Ty Robinson, a guy who played great this year, a guy who would have been drafted, he was playing NFL type caliber football, chose to come back when he really had no reason to, other than he just wanted to. To me, that speaks volumes about what Matt Rhule has potentially already started to build here at the University of Nebraska. All right, until next time, Husker Nation, check out CarrikerChronicles.com. It's where all your hopes and dreams come true. Football-wise, anyways, it's just science. Go, Big Red. Hey, stay tuned for all the content I'm turning out. Football season is over for Nebraska, and that sucks, but there's so much to talk about. Go, Big Red, and always remember to throw the ball.